Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We are driving home on our way from work. Today is a really cool anniversary in the world of WCW. It's funny how in this last year, I think most of the wrestling memories I'm having about things that I end up making videos about are about WCW. More than like what is going on in WWE today, what is the past of WWF, but here we are. Road Wild 1997 happened on this date. Lex Luger versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the WCW/NWO World Heavyweight Championship. There's a Lex Luger action figure coming out, a part of the Monday Night War brand exclusive to Walmart. I believe it's an Ultimate, even though it really is just him in black tights. But it depicts him of this time period. Now, I'm actually going to take you back to what happened a few days beforehand on the Monday Nitro, before Road Wild of 1997. I believe it was on the 4th of August, and it ends up being a really big episode of WCW Nitro because of the fact that it is the 100th episode of WCW Nitro since its debut, and they wanted to make sure they went out of their way to make it a big one. Now, yesterday we talked about the Road Wild event featuring Jay Leno, which would be the following year. And one of the things that, I think they drawed on was the fact that they just set the ring up in Sturgis in the middle of a motorcycle rally, and they just knew that if they sold beer and they had entertainment, that they would have, the bikers come to watch the wrestling. They would not have a gate. There would be no tickets sold. I think one year they even had Travis Tritt perform a concert trying to make sure that the bikers came to watch the show. But as the show went on, they would rev their engines. It would have been a real cool crowd for like the NWO Sold Out show that they ended up doing, but they ran that one in the middle of a blizzard in Iowa. And they had like the NWO show up on garbage trucks. I don't know, but I think if you had the biker crowd with them revving their engines, you could have said they were all members of the NWO to see the show. I think that would have been a cool atmosphere that would have paid off for the whole NWO invasion storyline. But as of right now, Lex Luger, he's heavily involved. He's probably the most over he's ever been in his whole career. They talk about as he's making his way to the ring. He hadn't been WCW champion since 1993, I believe. He had his run in WWE. He played the Narcissist. He played the All-American. But here in WCW, Lex Luger is basically the Lex Luger that WCW always had until they kind of changed his gimmick in the dying days of WCW, and he started going by the total package. I don't know why they thought if they dropped the Lex Luger name, but the announcers ended up slipping up and just calling him Lex Luger all the time anyways. But for any like match graphics or anything like that, they just were calling him the total package. I don't know. Some things don't always really make sense when you look back at them years later. But, Lex had two different characters when he wrestled in WWF, but this is kind of like the same one. But in this time period, he's probably like the most over that he's ever been. I know that, DDP got over in this time period just by being somebody on the WCW brand who stood up to the NWO. They just didn't take their money. The WCW Lex Luger character, as a whole, I think if you really look back upon it, if anybody was going to turn their back on WCW, I think it would have been Lex. Lex is a guy before the Big Show, before the Giant. He is a guy that flip-flopped, it felt like, each and every week. Whatever way the wind turned is whatever way Lex went. He, was a member of the Four Horsemen. He turned on the Four Horsemen. He had his best friend, but at the same time, he was a bad guy that was just wrestling in tag team matches with Sting. We never really saw the conclusion of that storyline at the beginning of Nitro. I can't remember if it was Lex or Sting that got hurt, but they were going somewhere with that one. But Lex kind of always was the same guy that would bounce back and forth. If you look back at Bash at the Beach 1996, I think that was a lot of people's guess at the time, that Lex would be the guy to turn on Sting, turn on Macho Man, and be that third guy for the NWO, because of the fact that we'd seen him turn on just about anybody and everybody. And if it meant him getting further in the company, it made more sense for it to be Lex. And then if you go back and you watch that match, when Lex gets taken out by being thrown into the not the turnbuckle, but on the outside, not the barricade. Fuck, what word am I looking for? That he ends up getting thrown into that, and they end up stretcher dropping him out of there. Who else wasn't watching that show, thinking Lex is just gonna come back at the end and be with the outsiders? That's honestly what I was thinking. I can remember thinking that at the time. I even thought as Hogan was making his way down that Lex would come from behind and attack Hogan, is what was going through my mind at the time. But you go to this episode of Monday Nitro on August 4th. About a month beforehand, in July, around the 4th of July, Hogan and Luger had been going back and forth. I think they knew at that time it was going to be the Road Wild main event, Hogan versus Luger, and they needed something to put it over the top. And they were jawing back and forth, and Hogan said that he would fight Lex Luger right then, right now, and the title wouldn't be on the line, but he wanted to teach Luger a lesson. And in the matter of like 3 minutes, Lex is able to fight off the NWO. Hall, Nash, and Six all jump into the ring, and one way or another, Luger's able to fight all 3 of them off. He's still able to pick Hogan up, put him in the torture rack, and Hogan tapped out. Once he tapped out, immediately all the Wolves jumped into the ring, and it was a 4-on-1 attack. Hulk Hogan ends up dropping like 6 leg drops on Luger, trying to teach him a lesson. And that was kind of like off to the races. Here comes the 100th Nitro. Luger's out there, he's running his mouth saying that he's beat Hogan once, he's gonna do it again. You think it's kind of funny for them to do the main event of Nitro as the main event of the pay-per-view that you're fixing to see on Saturday. But it is the 100th episode of Nitro. They're trying to make it a really big deal. But, Hogan puts the title on the line. It's a really good, it's kind of an average Hogan TV style of match. I think it's really funny that they were actually able to, with Hogan's contract and Hogan's deal, to get him to wrestle on Nitro. But I think that, WCW knew that, with no gate, they really needed to have a strong pay-per-view buy, and they needed to have something for people to grab a hold to and care about, so that way they would order the pay-per-view come Saturday from Sturgis. But Hogan is wearing down on Luger. He's choking him, he's punching him, he's kicking him, he's doing like suplex spots, trying to say that he's the best guy. Every time he's trying to get a cover on Luger, it's 1-2 kick out. But just magically, Luger does it with no outside interference. It's not like the Mankind title win where, Stone Cold Steve Austin and DX are coming out of the back. It's just Luger versus the NWO. The normal guys are all out there. You got Six, you've got Nash, you've got Hall. I think Nash was hurt at this time, because when you watch this match, he gets bumped out pretty much by running into Scott Hall, and he takes a fall, and or maybe since he was the biggest guy, they didn't want to get him close to the action, trying to make him look like a goober at the time or something like that. But Luger's able to pick Hogan up. He puts him in the torture rack. Hogan taps out yet once again. This is the first time WCW has been able to get a win against the NWO. It's the first time that, you know, one of, you know, the Hogans, the Halls, the Nashes, Sixes, they've always found one way or another to get out of matches, but this one here, it ends by Hogan tapping out. They lose the championship. They had held it for close to a year. They won it at Road Wild from the Giant the year before, and it was a huge ordeal. The second that the match is over, they don't let the NWO run in there and just try to interfere. They kind of hit the bricks, but guys like the Giant, guys like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, just about any WCW wrestler that is on the roster is pouring into the ring. And by the fact that a lot of these guys aren't in gear, I think it probably was a surprise. You know, the Giant comes out, he's just wearing, you know, jeans and like a workout tank top. You know, there's referees out there that you're trying to look at them and trying to figure out who they are before you realize that it's just a guy, the referee, wearing, you know, a freaking, wearing his normal stuff. But WCW, they lift him up on the shoulders, much like it's like the end of like SummerSlam '93, or they're picking up Bret Hart.